copied on the invite. Good evening to all of our Ocean Boulevard residents and residents of the town. We wanted to have just a midsummer meeting with most of our Ocean Boulevard residents to kind of bring you up to date and informed on some of the decisions that we're making in the community as it relates to security enhancements that we'd like to make on Ocean Boulevard. To also implore you to assist us in getting the word out in terms of some of the issues that we're noticing in our community as it relates to some challenges that we're having on Ocean Boulevard. And this evening, on behalf of the town staff, we have Chief Herbello and Lieutenant Diaz, who will kind of give a little bit of an update in terms of some of the enhancements that we're doing to improve our security protocols on Ocean. But I wanted to spend just a few seconds to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we're seeing as it relates to Ocean Boulevard and some of the great opportunities that we have proposed for you and your section of the community moving forward. If you may have heard through the rumor mill or through some of our communication pieces that we put in our newsletter, we've recently, this past year, have had 2 incidents on Ocean Boulevard that has caused us to take a pause and revisit all of our security measures along Ocean Boulevard to see how we can better enhance our security offerings to ensure that your homes are protected, constantly being monitored and visited by our police department, and ways that we can improve your privacy and our enforcement efforts along Ocean Boulevard. Earlier in the year, we did have 1 vehicle that was taken from Ocean Boulevard. That vehicle did have the key fob left in the vehicle. I know that a lot of our residents feel that because we live in Golden Beach, it's okay for us to leave our key fobs and our vehicles unlocked. Like every other community in South Florida, we are not immune to some of the challenges that we're facing as a region. And all of our homeowners are asked and strongly encouraged to take every security precaution that you can to safeguard your home. Just 2.5 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we did have 4 individuals who were brought in by Uber who tried to gain access to one of our homes on Ocean Boulevard. Fortunately for us, the resident was home and was able to notify the police, who immediately apprehended the 4 individuals and arrested them. And we have a very active case as it relates to that group of individuals who have come into our community to create a sense of insecurity and havoc among our Ocean Boulevard residents. Since that time, we did have a city council meeting where the city council was asked and they authorized us as the administration to move forward with an aggressive plan to increase our security protocols in town. Since that time, we have initiated extra overtime details on Ocean Boulevard with both plainclothes police officers. So some of the officers, you may not even know that they're there actually patrolling, providing enhanced security so that the public doesn't know that there's police officers, but we do have plainclothes officers working on Ocean Boulevard. We have increased our patrol on Ocean itself. We have now asked for more frequent beach checks along the Ocean side and more patrols on Ocean. We have directed our police staff to spend a majority of their time patrolling Ocean Boulevard versus the interior of town that is a little bit more secured. In addition to that, I recently asked the city council to allow us to install flares and cameras at 33 locations on Ocean, both on Ocean Boulevard and on the Ocean. As you may not be aware, we currently only have 4 cameras that monitor Ocean, 3 on the north end, 3 on the south end, and 1 at the beach pavilion that monitors the beach. We are now looking to almost quintuple that. We want to have a camera just about every 5 houses on Ocean, and at least 3 every block along the median on the interior of Ocean Boulevard. So that if something were to happen mid-block or mid-island, as you know, there are islands that divide Ocean Boulevard, we will have at a minimum 3 cameras per island, actually 6, because it's 2 facing north, 2 facing south on each island, that would allow us to have a better view when someone is either being dropped off or walking along Ocean Boulevard on both the east and west side. And then on the Ocean Boulevard side, we're planning to put cameras and flares. The reason we're using flares detect heat signatures. So that at night, if we can't see, the heat signatures will alert us that someone is walking along the Ocean, and we'll be able to to monitor where they go. Currently, we can only see when somebody enters the north side or the south side, but we lose them in between. By adding more cameras along the entire length of the sand area, we'll have better coverage of anyone who's coming into our community at both the daytime or the nighttime. They will be actively monitored, and they're intelligent cameras that will actually be able to follow the individuals as they move from cameras to cameras. We're taking these enforcement actions and these measures to better improve the quality of service that we provide you, our Ocean Boulevard residents, as it relates to security. We want you to never have a sense of insecurity as our community becomes more and more popular. So we are asking the city council, and they have already agreed, to allow us to explore adding these cameras. We're looking at a project cost of about $1.8 million. We're not asking our residents for a single dime in taxes for this. We plan to absorb it through our communication assessment that we recently have authorized, and we plan to absorb it through our LETF forfeited assets dollars. I don't want to spend time talking today about the other security measures that we're going to be offering on both the Intercoastal and on Golden Beach Drive. This conversation today is specifically as it relates to our Ocean Boulevard residents. We have also added additional ATVs so that our officers can provide better patrol. As you may have noticed at night, the ATVs now have flashing red and blue lights so that you are aware when they're out there. The officers have also been asked to increase their use of the spotlight so that you can see them actually physically looking on your pool decks and in your backyards to make sure that we're looking for anyone who may be in that area that are not supposed to be there. We want to take these proactive measures to let the South Florida community know that if you come to Golden Beach and you dare to try to do anything that is notorious or forest, we're here to stop you. We do not want we don't want visitors to our communities to think or feel that they can get away with coming to our community. I do want to spend just a few minutes briefly talking about our ocean rules as it relates to people who are walking, standing, or recreating, because there's a lot of misconception and a lot of misnomers as it relates to our ocean side rules and the beach and how it applies. As you may know, your property line does have a definitive end to your property. You do not own up to the mean high water line. In fact, most of you only own about 10 to 12 feet beyond your bulkhead line. If you're wondering, where is my bulkhead line? If you look at your cabana, think about 5 to 7 feet beyond your cabana. That's what you own for most of you. There are a few homes that go a little bit further east towards the ocean, but for the majority of our Ocean Boulevard residents on the ocean side, you only own a couple of feet beyond the cabana area. But the law does give you a certain right. And here's what that law states. There is a law that gives the upland owners. So if you're an owner on ocean, and you own property on the sand, it gives the upland owners from the mean high water line to your property what is called the exclusive right of enjoyment. Let me say that right again. Exclusive right of enjoyment, not ownership. So you do not own that property, but you do have the exclusive right to enjoy that. And we, as visitors to Golden Beach, or anyone who visits Golden Beach, is allowed to laterally traverse along the shoreline through the town of Golden Beach. We cannot stop to recreate. We cannot stop to set up tents or do other things. We are allowed to go fishing. You are allowed to stop and go fishing in that area, so long as it's not commercial fishing. But residents have to understand that you do not own that property area. So it is difficult for our community and for our police department to go and arrest someone who may be recreating in that area. So what we do is we have a very aggressive campaign to encourage those individuals who are coming to our community to do what the state law recommends, which is to laterally traverse along the state shoreline. Recently, there have been more and more challenges as it relates to what are our allowable enforcement measures along the state's shoreline. And we have taken a aggressive position that we encourage individuals to keep on traversing, but that they don't stop to recreate. There are several homeowners along Ocean Boulevard on the east side who demand that we arrest anyone who is stopping to recreate. I will tell you that unless you as a homeowner are willing to sign an arrest affidavit stating that they are trespassing on your private property, we cannot arrest those individuals. We can only make them feel extremely uncomfortable and encourage them to laterally traverse. And if someone challenges us, as they have recently become more bold and have challenged us, we just try to make our presence known, make it uncomfortable, and hope that they walk away. And typically they do. After we hover for a good 10 minutes, they feel a little bit harassed, although we're not harassing them, and then they tend to go away. But I know that a lot of our residents recently have felt that we haven't been too aggressive when it comes to that area. The reason, again, I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that you do have a definitive point where your property ends and the state shoreline, which is owned by the state and where visitors to the state are allowed to come and traverse, begins. And so know that we are monitoring that more aggressively. In fact, I directed, along with Mayor Singer's approval, our chief to start a more aggressive weekend campaign of having a police officer dedicated exclusively to our Ocean Boulevard east on the sand to patrol more aggressively and to encourage those beachgoers to stay out of the Golden Beach area, as well as in approving a larger budget of overtime for our police to patrol Ocean Boulevard and those areas. And so I've tried to authorize enough resources to get us through the period of when we erect the cameras and the flares on Ocean Boulevard. I do need all of our residents to work with us. When you see something that doesn't feel right, when you see someone who may be walking back and forth, it is incumbent upon you to please notify us. You may call the substation. If you feel it warrants it, call 911 and let us know. Here's what's been happening lately. On 2 different occasions, our residents have called 30 to 40 minutes after individuals have been seen in their areas. And they have offered to us that they waited so long because they weren't sure if they should call. Well, 3 minutes is a long time. 30 minutes is an eternity. So if you see something and you feel uncomfortable, and by the way, call us as often as you feel necessary. You can call us 20 times a day and we will not be bothered. In fact, it is encouraging for us to hear from our residents when you see something, because the more set of eyes that we have out on Ocean Boulevard informing us of things that you're seeing, the better informed we are and the better that we can tailor our response to the needs of our Ocean Boulevard residents. Now, today's meeting is not to sound an alarm or ring bells and get you worried. We wanted you to be aware of the 2 incidents that occurred recently, and we wanted to share with you some of the great opportunities that we have to make your homes more secure and give you more peace of mind. Now, I typically tend to talk too much. I'd like for Chief Rebello to briefly go over some of the things that he may want to share with you. And then this forum is for you to share with us your concerns or any observations that you may have. Chief Rebello.
Good morning, everyone. So besides the normal proactive work that we do in town and on Ocean, what I have done is, like, I initiated what is called a high visibility detail. And what I did at the beginning of the year is that I instructed each officer per shift that they have to spend like half an hour on 193rd Street and half an hour on County Line. So if you have 3 officers, you're talking about 1, 2, 3 hours per shift. So that will be 9 hours per day on each side of the on Ocean, on 193rd and County Line. But besides that, we initiated also an undercover assignment as well, where we have officers in overtime basis working with a no-mark car patrolling Ocean Boulevard. When it comes to the beach detail, when I became the chief, we were doing like 2 beach details per shift. That means we were doing 6 beach details per day. Now we're doing 3 beach detail per shift, which means 9 a day. But besides that, we have a beach detail in overtime basis on the weekends to patrol the area more often. Let me see. I also instructed the officers to patrol, because we also have to take care of the inside of the town, the islands. So what I have instructed them is to spend 75% of their time on Ocean Boulevard and 25% of their time on inside the islands. I just wanted to tell you that when it comes to doing like an assessment of your home, we can do that as well. We have Lieutenant Perez that can go to your house and she can basically give you a detailed report of the things that you have to do to make sure that if you need more lighting, if you have to trim your bushes and things like that, that is crime initiated, that will help us basically like go over like to your property and make sure that your property is secure for us to have a clear vision of your interior of the house. You can call us and I will make sure that Lieutenant Perez go to your house and give you like a detailed report of what needs to be done.
You know, one of the things that we're seeing, and although all of the recent sales in town have been great news for our residents, and we're all excited about the recent sales along Ocean Boulevard, that just puts more information out into the universe in terms of the value of our community. And, you know, everyone reads the articles, whether you're someone who's astute or not, you're going to find out that there are homes in town selling for $30 million, and people's curiosities are just going to continue to peak. And so it's our job to ensure that you, as our lifetime residents, whether you're new or old, that you know that your police department is there to protect you. You know, a majority of our budget, over 70% of our budget, is dedicated to our police department and to security measures. And it's important for me as your city manager, and I've served you now for the last 15 years, that you know that we do not sit back on our laurels and just go with the success that we've had. It is always important. And if you listen to our budget message last year and our budget message this year, it is our job to be forward thinking, future focused and forward thinking. So that's what we're doing. We plan to be the first community in South Florida that provides a complete net over the entire city. What does that mean? There will not be a single piece of right-of-way. Notice how I use the word right-of-way, because we're always going to protect your private property and not infringe upon your property. But there will not be a single inch of right-of-way in our community that is not visible through one of the new cameras that we're going to be installing in our community. And on Ocean, we did not cut corners, and we ensured that we put flares in, because on Ocean, the only way that we can detect someone coming through town is by using heat signatures. And so those heat signature cameras, believe it or not, cost anywhere between $18,000 to $22,000 per camera. And we plan, Gio, shake your head yes or no, I think it's 13 of them on Ocean. Okay, that's a lot of flares that we're going to put on Ocean Boulevard, because it's important for us. And the reason Gio's mic is not working, but it's important for you to know when it comes to making sure that we have visibility on the Ocean side, we do not want to cut any corners. You are as important, if not more important to us as the interior of town. And we want to make sure that if there's anything that you feel that we should be doing differently, we hear you loud and clear. I know that our patrols on Ocean sometimes tend to go a little bit faster, and we've now asked them to slow down so that you can see them. We've put lights on the vehicles so you can see the flashing lights. I will tell you that I have been patrolling, as many of you know. I went to the police academy so that I could learn a little bit more about our police department. I've been patrolling on Ocean. I hate to admit it, but I will. I'm not a hypocrite. When I go on the patrol at night in the vehicles, I tend to go a little bit fast because the bugs are hitting you in the face and there's a lot of things that go on. So even myself, I've had to say, okay, we should probably put a window on the vehicle so I'm not eating bugs as I'm driving through. And so we're going to make some changes so that we can patrol you better and offer you better services. We really believe that the flare system, the cameras are going to give us that advantage that most communities do not have. We will be the first community in South Florida, and if not the state of Florida, that provides flares along the Ocean. And like I said, at every 250 to 400 feet. And so you're going to start seeing those go up in the first quarter of next year without asking you to increase your millage rate to provide you with those services. What I'd like to do now, before I continue to talk a little bit about what we're doing, is hear from you what some of your concerns, what some of the rumors may have been that you have been hearing from your neighbors. How do you feel we should best communicate with you when incidents arise? And what can we do to bring you more comfort and peace of mind so that you're not concerned when you're coming home? So I'd like to open it up. If you could just unmute yourself when you wish to speak. There's a mute unmute button, and whoever wants to speak first.
That's Herb Tobin. My wife Fran and I have lived here since 1978, and in the same residence. I think we have an outstanding police department, and Fran and I are very appreciative of the effort that you're trying to make. I think it's really very critical because there over the years has been an information lag where the administration's trying to accomplish some things, but it just isn't getting through to the people, and this kinds of forums really help. The one thing that I think is an observation needs to be addressed. I have personally experienced outstanding police responses. However, in many of the incidences, it broke down because of the fact that you have they're not police officers, okay, at the gate. And when you call into that number, there's often a lot of misunderstandings. The sergeants have said to me, because they missed their timing because the guy didn't get it, okay? So I don't know how you solve that. I'm not complaining like I'm all upset. This was a positive meeting where we're talking with the ideas. I think that's an area of focus. I think the cameras are a good thing. I can tell you that the police force is well trained and know what to do.
Mayor Tobin, if I may interrupt briefly, and I'm sorry for doing so. I do want you to know that Chief Rebello did ask, and I did authorize, all of our call takers in the substation are going to dispatch school, and most of them, if not all of them, are also going to go to PSA schools, where there's just public service aid schools, so they can have a little bit more training. That's something that we haven't done in the past. We feel that it's time for them to at least have a call taker training through a regular 911 dispatching center, and that's going to help us a little bit. We still won't be in a 911 certified center, but at least they'll be able to ask the proper questions. As you know, we took over the guardhouse from Navarro Security a couple years back. And since that time, we've been trying to have full-time staff dedicated there. We do now have 5 full-time staff members that belong to the town of Golden Beach. And the chief has been authorized to send them to both 911 call center training and public service aid training, where they can be public service aid call takers to better offer you. And I do understand that there's some issues with sometimes the accent of some of our call takers. We're working on that as well. So know that we know the issue, and we've tried to identify a way to fix that. But I appreciate you.
I think that's great.
And again, I apologize for interrupting.
I salute you.
Mr. Diaz, good evening. How are you?
Alex.
How are you?
Excellent.
So some of you may know or not know, but unfortunately, myself and my brother have been the victims of the last 2 incidents in Ocean Boulevard. But I'll get to that in a second. But first, I just want to commend the police department in its entirety. I've gotten to know several of them personally, and the 2 incidents, both the response and the professionalism of the police department is second to none. So that's first and foremost. Like Mr. Tobin said, in my particular incident that happened on Father's Day a few weeks ago, it was definitely a language issue on the dispatch. And I think had that not happened, it would have been a lot quicker resolution, but overall it was definitely a quick resolution. To bring up the point that you're bringing, the initiative that you're discussing as far as the cameras and the flares on Ocean Boulevard, my question would be, if you know there are people walking down Ocean Boulevard from end to end, that's a great distance. There needs to be some sort of, I know you're saying that there's going to be a lot more patrol, but there's a lot of time lag from the time they enter to the time they leave, where there's a lot of things that can happen. My brother is the one that obviously had that incident about 2 months ago, that they sat there literally for 2.5 hours breaking into his house. And that's a very long time lag. So I'm just kind of wondering how that can be addressed.
And I'm going to interrupt to kind of give you a little bit of perspective in terms of what we're doing. So like I mentioned earlier, right now on Ocean Boulevard itself, we only have a camera on the north side and on the south side. We now will have on every island. So, there's,
Mhm.
there are the islands where you make the
Yep.
turnarounds. On every island, there'll be 3 sets of cameras. The beginning of the island, the
Okay,
middle of the island, and the rear of the island.
got it. Got
And
it.
at each of those locations, there'll be cameras facing north and south. So
Okay,
we'll have sets. So the way the cameras will work is, let's say that I'm walking on either side of the street, on the sidewalk side or on the non-sidewalk side.
Mhm.
And I get captured let's say I get dropped off by Uber mid-island. And I'm now found walking. The cameras will now be able to pick you up and it will track you to where you're going. And these cameras are so smart that when someone is tracked, right, it'll ring a bell in the substation saying, hey, wake up, pay attention. Someone is now walking along the street, right? And so the cameras are more AI driven. So they will actually be informing us. And because we'll have 3 locations, 6 cameras, north and south of each of the islands, there's not a single, I'm proposing, the council has to still finally vote on it, but I believe that they hear the message loud and clear from our residents. There will not be a single area of town that isn't covered by either a camera or a flare, so that we can do 2 things. One, instead of being reactive as we had been in the 2 unfortunate cases of your home and your brother's home, we will be a little bit proactive, because if we see that there's a car stopping mid-block and there are kids or individuals coming out of the car and they're not going into a property, but they're kind of walking around, looking around, looking for Amazon bags to steal, we'll be more proactive. And so we'll have better response. That's one. And then the second part is we'll have better tools to better investigate. As you may know, the camera qualities that we have in town today are camera qualities from almost 11 years ago. So all that you see on the camera is that.
Yeah.
We can't tell what the person's features are. So our goal is to create a better camera so that we can see some of the features and be able to use it as an investigative tool. So, but that's not the only solution, right? The other solution is that we also need to be, as your staff, need to be a little bit more proactive in understanding a little bit of what's going on in South Florida. We see a lot more homelessness coming through town. We've had to kick out in the last year alone at a minimum 4 to 5 homeless individuals who have come to our communities to either be in the beach pavilion or take up sleeping in some of the rear properties. So we've got to be more cognizant and trying to understand what's going on. We've done a good job on the waterway, on the intercoastal, when we see GPSs being stolen in the lights, but we need to be a little bit more proactive on the ocean side. And so that's our pledge to you. When we hear that there are individual gangs of car thieves that are developing, making sure that we go through when our police are driving and we see mirrors that are sticking out, which means that the car is unlocked, taking the time to stop, get out and say, listen, we know that your car is in the gate, but you need to lock it so that it isn't as accessible. So you'll be seeing a little bit more of what we call community-oriented policing and environmental policing. So the environment will dictate how we respond. So Chief Arbello is putting together a pretty proactive training course on environmental design, on how we can be a little bit more proactive to the environment, what we see in the community, and what's going on in our area. That's our pledge. Look, will we always be 100%? I don't think there's a single community, as we all have seen. Even the White House has had people jump the fence and gain access to the interior of the White House. So the most secure built home in the world has had breaches. Our pledge is just to do better, and so that we never have to have an incident where we fall short. And again, it's unfortunate that it happens. It shouldn't happen. I just want you to know that we will spend whatever resources we need to spend to make sure that we're trying to be as proactive as we can, so that you can have peace of mind in your investment and in the securities that you have requested of us.
Thank you very much for that.
Mr. Myers?
Thank you.
Call me Lloyd. Hi, everyone. Nice to see everybody. First of all, I just want to echo everyone's comments about the police department. To a person, everybody's been very professional and very friendly, and we feel very safe. I had a car stolen probably a year ago now, maybe 9 months ago. A young gentleman jumped the fence, and it was very unpleasant. The issue I want to bring up, though, is that once I got past the Golden Beach police department, we were put in contact with a detective that was not part of the Golden Beach Police Force. At least that's my understanding. It's like a shared detective. He was maybe Sunny Isles or somewhere else. And it felt different in terms of that interaction and level of engagement, and actually even in purpose. When I said, well, what can we do about it? Well, this happens all the time. The car's, off to China or something. And if we catch these people, they'll just let them go anyhow. Is that kind of attitude as opposed to, we're going to put an end to it, which is what, you're saying here. So I just want to understand that. And if that actually was the case.
Let me talk a little bit about that. And I know that
How we improve that.
I see the chief's eyebrows going up and down. And let me tell you, it's a concern that I have had. So as you may have known, we used to have Dan Rosenberg, who was our full-time in-house detective, who made sure that he held your hand and walked you through the process from beginning to end, and was constantly staying on top of the case and keeping you well informed. So about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we decided to go with a reversed approach. So we have 3 detached police officers who spend their time full-time outside of the city, investigating major federal, international crimes as it relates to money laundering, drug laundering, and the likes. And so what we decided to do is try a new program, which I haven't been happy with, by the way. So the program, what it does is it rotates those detectives once a month through our city to take on local cases. The problem with that, I don't feel that they have given that hands-on, everyday reassurance and following up. And I agree with you that sometimes the approach is, well, it's what's going on in the world, and so you were a victim of that. That's not the right response. The right response is to talk a little bit about where your case is, giving you everyday updates, calling you more frequently, keeping you in the loop and keeping you informed. So one of the things that you will notice in this year's budget, we are bringing back a detective in-house. So we will be pulling one of our detached detectives off of the detached units, and they're going to be coming back full-time to Golden Beach to manage all of our cases. The chief has already been made aware of this, that we're going to be pulling somebody from the detached groups, and they're going to be assigned to manage all of our cases from beginning to end, so that you get that concierge feel and that level of attention that is needed. I have witnessed, as your manager, the disconnect between the concierge type of detective service that we used to get out of Detective Rosenberg, and the little bit more cold, aloof detachedness that we get from the detached officers. Now, there is a different approach, right? So when you're detached and you're following federal cases, there isn't that level of communication that's needed. However, when it's your home or your car that's taken, you want to know and want to be kept abreast. You want to make sure that everything is being done and that you're not forgotten of. And so in this year's budget, we are recalling one of the detached individuals to come back to our community to be our full-time detective. That's already planned in this year's budget. Now, the chief will have the tough decision as to decide who of the 3 we're going to bring back so that we have a full-time detective on staff.
Thank
And
you.
I'm glad to hear from you, because it's something that I've been feeling in my gut. And I'll tell you when this happened. And the chief and the lieutenant are on. So I was on patrol when one of our homeowners felt that their car was stolen. And in fact, it wasn't stolen. It was taken by someone else. But I didn't feel that the detective who was assigned the case did the level of interaction that I would expect as your manager. And since that time, I've been talking to the chief and the command staff about bringing someone back. And so we're looking to do that. But I'm glad to hear from a resident. Chief, if you notice the sentiments, is that disconnect, that lack of Golden Beach conciergeness that we need to bring back to our detective team.
Yeah,
So thank you, Mr. Ayers, for reinforcing that for me today.
Thank you.
Ms. Behar,
Well,
Ms.
yes,
Behar, how are you?
how are you? Mrs. Levy, actually, my husband is Jean-Pierre Levy. I also want to commend you guys, because every time we have had to call for whatever the reason, we've always had a great response, and the officers are always very kind and very thorough and have made me feel safe when I needed to. As every other resident on Ocean Boulevard, the situation with the lights that we have to not have it's a little concerning, and we understand that absolutely, but I can tell you that many nights I would like to sit out there because it's so beautiful, and I am afraid to sit outside. I mean, close to my windows, to my doors, around my pool, I would, but further down where I have some chairs around the seawall, I wouldn't, because everything is so dark and we cannot have any light. And I understand, I would like to find a solution to that is the right solution, and that we can do it. And that's one thing. I don't know if you have.
Well, Ms. Levy, we can definitely, Ms. Levy, we can definitely help you with that. And in fact, Chief, have Lieutenant Perez and Officer Weiner both, because the issue is the turtles, right? So the state, the state mandates that we have to be very careful with the amount of white light that we put out as it relates to turtles. But it does not limit our ability to put out more amber lighting, right? And so if your amber lighting is insufficient and it still creates areas of darkness or areas that you don't feel comfortable with, we could definitely assist and address how we can get more of the amber lighting in your yard. There are homes on Ocean that are fully amber and beautiful and not have any areas of darkness. And so why don't we, in fact, Rudy, make sure that I go that night personally. There are ways that we can help you enjoy your property while still respecting the rights of the turtles that are also protected. And there's a balance, right? And so we as staff are here to help you find that balance and give you recommendations. And wherever we can participate, we will as well.
And I also want to bring up another issue that is not necessarily security per se, but
anything is it's an open forum tonight.
It's those boats that we have been having coming very close to the shore, because I understand if they are far, but if they are, as close as I can just swim a little bit and go to them, then they're very close.
So
in the recent, the latest time, it was I think it was Father's Day, I don't know, that we called, and it was explained to us that, I know that because in the past they have told us that there's nothing you can do, they are in the water, so there's nothing you can do, you can say, I understand that. But is there anything we can do? Like make our beaches such that people cannot come into swimming areas?
So two things that we are exploring, because we have noticed more and more anchoring off our shoreline. So there are two things that I have been talking with the town attorney on and have been talking privately with the city council. I say privately because I like to be careful with what we put into the public domain before people could challenge us. So we have been looking at ways to designate the entire shoreline from beginning to end as a designated swim area, which will keep the boulders even further out of our area. So we have been exploring with the city council, with the attorneys, on how that we can locally designate our own swim area so that boats cannot come as close to shore as they can. I also want to talk about the 3 recent migration landings that we have had in town. So we have recently had 3 different migrant groups land on our shores, where our police staff has detained them and helped Customs and Border Patrol. We are aware, it seems like more and more of the smugglers are trying to come to our areas because we don't have the high rises with the security cameras. We're trying to make it known through Customs and others that we are adding cameras and flares, and hopefully the smugglers won't be coming into our areas. The 2 boats that have landed without being smuggled in, it's just that there's a natural current that comes to Golden Beach, and that's why it comes close to us. But know that we have, on all 3 occurrences that we've had recently, we've been able to respond and ask and detain the individuals. But we are working on a designated swim area for the entire shoreline. That usually takes a little bit longer than I feel comfortable with, but there's a process that we have to undergo. But know that that is on our agenda.
But in the meantime, before you get that, at least when they are blasting music, can they be asked to lower it? It's so strong sometimes that inside the house we hear the music. It's really, we cannot be outside.
No, but I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what we can do. I'll tell you what we can do. We recently have taken possession of a jet ski through our forfeited asset programs. So one of the things that we can do, by the way, this is important for you to know, we now have Rudy Geo Shaker had 6 more or 7 more certified Marine Patrol officers?
We have 7.
Okay, so we used to have 3, now we have 7 certified Marine Patrol officers. So we can look at ways of using the jet ski and the boat to do more ocean patrols and go up to those boats that are anchoring to help educate them. And I know that there's already been 2 officers who have requested to be the jet ski patrol. So let us see what we can do. I hear your concern. Let us come up with a creative solution to help you with that.
Thank you.
By the way, my last patrol in town was on a Saturday, and there was a boat that anchored offshore. And I felt bad, but I had to do it anyways. They came onto the shore with 2 babies, 2 kids and a baby. And I informed them that they couldn't recreate, and they gladly just went back to the boat and left because they thought they could anchor and use our sand. When I told them that they couldn't use the sand, they left. So we can do things. We just need to teach our officers to do those
How to
things.
do
Mr.
you.
Ossett, I hope I mentioned that correctly. I said it correctly.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and hello, everyone. I'm a new resident. I've been in Golden Beach at 577 for about a year. Firstly, I'd like to commend the police force. When I was looking at the house, 2 police cars came to question me, which I thought was great. When I got the house and I was trying to rake up some mess by the seawall, the beach patrol came and also questioned me, which I thought was spectacular. And so I must say the policing of the area is off the charts high, and I can't say, I've never been exposed to that. The car theft stuff doesn't really bother me that much. I live mostly in Canada, which is a very safe place. The number of car thefts over here is like, you can't believe it.
Wow.
Your Land Rover gets stolen today, you get a new one, the car gets stolen again. And so in Golden Beach, it's like nothing. It's fantastic. My question really relates to the beach side. A couple things. I'm a technology guy, and I've done security and facial on cameras. The challenge you have with your flare cameras are the cats. If I look at my property, as Alex, there are like 14 wild cats on the bloody property. And every security camera that I have that is motion detection, it's cats, cats all over the bloody show. And your flare cameras are going to be completely ineffective because the cats are going to basically trip, and eventually the people monitoring the cameras are going to get fatigued. They know that the cats are going. Better solutions typically are more laser beams, like you can see, I think it's at 421.
Yes.
It's at a slightly higher height. Where you basically have a perimeter. If you break the perimeter at a certain height at a certain time, it triggers an alarm.
Mr. Ossip, there are some security features that we're not speaking tonight about because we don't want everyone to know everything that we're doing, but know that that is part of our security protocols moving forward.
The other one is with Mrs. Bahar kind of mentioned, which are the lights. So the first defense, as you know, is always good lighting. I, as probably everyone else, has a bunch of security cameras that are motion detection. And when it trips, you would like the bright lights to come on so that you can get a higher resolution video that you can use to actually identify who the person is. The soft and the amber lights don't allow you to get basically 4K video, a high definition video. And because of the distances that you have between the cameras and the individuals, if it's not 4K, you're not going to see anything. It could be anyone. The second area is that during April to October, we aren't allowed to have proper lighting, I think, at the beach side, unless it's really dulled down and such. And that means that most of us and most of these houses on the ocean are designed or will be designed to have as much glass facing the water for water views. And you can't really defend it. You can't really protect it. The patrols on the beach, I think, are great. I listened to the town council meeting where we had the one gentleman complain that the vehicles go by too quickly. I don't think that makes much of a difference. I think it's just presence that you need on the actual beach. When the one vehicle broke down in front of my house, it was great because he left it there with the light flashing at night. That's probably the best thing that you possibly could do. I'd like the broken cart returned to the property because I thought, that was fantastic. But I would recommend you take a similar type of approach that you use on the street side, where you possibly leave some vehicles with flashing lights at night just to signal that there is a presence and people will actually know. But again, I think the level of care and service, I've never seen anything like this on a global basis. And it's something that I think you guys should be very proud of. So thank you.
Thank you. To your point, Mr. Alsop, we do purchase, and I'm sure you guys, maybe you're aware of this, maybe you're not aware of this. We do spend about $35,000 every year purchasing 2 new beach vehicles every year. Our beach vehicles give us about a 10.5 month range before they start dying because of the corrosion. And so know that we're constantly buying new vehicles. And so one of the challenges that we're having right now is the global supply issue. We haven't been able to find a new one readily available. So we're actually now renting and borrowing those vehicles. Our goal is that as they do go down, that we're never not patrolling. And so the chief and the lieutenant have been procuring those vehicles so that we can do more patrols. One of the other things that we're doing, and it's a little bit difficult because walking the sand is not that easy, but we have instructed our officers when the vehicles are down to go down and kind of walk a little bit along the shoreline where it's a little bit easier to walk so they see us out there. I like the idea of
Look, a more cost-effective solution might be just to hire a private security company like Garda or someone, and to get them to basically just patrol back and forth at night. My guess is that would probably be a lower cost and also would probably give the presence of coverage. I don't know how many patrols you have along the beach, but I would have dedicated 1 officer per shift just to patrol the beach as opposed to have the rotation that you currently have, where the person just goes up and forth all the time. And I think that would alleviate any type of concerns.
Look, I've heard that now. It's probably the 4th time that I hear an Ocean Boulevard resident suggest that we should look at private security for patrolling the ocean. I will tell you, we take great pride in making sure that our police department meets the needs of our Ocean Boulevard residents. We used to have private security man our guardhouse. For those who have been here longer, you have less control and less enforcement action. We because they're third party, we can't manage them directly as they're managed by the company. What we need to do is do a better job in providing our staff out there patrolling more aggressively, more frequently. The last thing that I would like to see as your manager is us have to depend on someone else to provide us a service that we should be providing on your behalf. So with that said, in talking to Mayor, in answering one of Mayor Tobin's questions earlier, when I mentioned the word PSA, so we are a public service aid. I'm sure you've seen them in other communities. They are police trained to do reports, answer calls, and be somewhat of security guards. We now will be training all of our guard house members to be PSAs. I love the idea of using, and Chief, write this down because you're going to get directed to do this tomorrow. I love the idea of maybe assigning more of our PSAs to do the roaming along the sand. It would be a great opportunity for them to earn overtime and help them out a little bit, Gio. So we should probably do that. But we should probably schedule more PSAs and those individuals that we're sending to the police academy to also be those roving guards on Ocean, especially at night or in the early afternoons. So Mr. Alsop, I'm going to take your idea, spin it a little bit. Mr. Tobin, take your idea and spin it a little bit and morph into a new program, because I think that both ideas are great. And I think that we could use both programs to create more of our own staff doing that service. So Rudy, let's think about that, a more aggressive PSA patrolling the ocean instead of the officers.
Yeah, the one thing I would recommend is that your reliance on technology might be a bit optimistic. Any cameras that you have on the ocean side, I doubt that those things will last a season.
Well, we've been fortunate. We've been fortunate with the ones that we have out there. I mean, the ones that we have at the beach pavilion and on the north side and south side have given us a good 4 to 5 years in terms of their reliability. And so their code is separate in a different type of coding. They're sealed, they're vacuum sealed, and they have so we have some challenges, but they work. And we are adding some laser beams to when you cross a border or a perimeter, we are adding those at certain locations. And the flares, trust me, the cat issue and the turtle issues has been something that we've been talking to the manufacturer about, and you can determine the mass. So when there's a certain amount of massing that comes through, that's when the alarms go off. So you wouldn't necessarily ring when the mass is small enough to be an animal, but it would alert us when the mass is a little bit bigger, like a child or an adult. But we'll flush these issues out, and once we're ready to roll it out, I'd love to invite you in and show you what we're doing, so you could express to us some of the concerns that you may have or some of the hesitations.
With those cats, I don't think you'll get by anything. It's not one cat.
Yeah,
They're moving
it's the
packs of
colonies.
yeah, they're moving packs of 3 and 4.
Yeah, it's the
One
colonies.
doesn't trip it, but the 3 and 4 will trip it.
Absolutely.
By the way, the sea turtles and the cats don't seem to mix well at all.
Yeah.
It seems like a smorgasbord each time a turtle lays a nest. The cat's all over it. It's like, brunch.
Okay. Any other
Well,
resident? Ms. White?
thank you very, very much.
No, thank you, sir. Ms. White, have I seen you? And any observations, or Mr. Mena or Mr. Raven? Anyone else?
I just want to say one last thing.
Please.
Historically, Golden Beach had a crime watch type of thing. And it didn't work because people just didn't get it, okay? And I think it's important because you've got a pretty good group of people here. It's not anywhere near the number of people that are on Ocean Boulevard. And we have a lot of new people coming into Ocean Boulevard. 3 homes on either side of us are for sale. And I just feel like it would be really important to continue to reach out to those that did not come in the meeting today for whatever reason. And I think that's a good thing. And I think it's okay to say to people, if you see something going on that's not right, don't be afraid to call the police.
Absolutely.
I think it's a really
Absolutely. And we'll definitely focus in on those that didn't participate. And we pledge to do a better job in making you aware of what's going on. Again, we don't want to create a sense of hysteria or alarmism where people feel uncomfortable, because we are not immune to what goes on in South Florida. But we want you to know that we aren't ignorant to it either, and that we are making strides in making your Jeremy, I don't know your last name. It only says Jeremy on the screen. Did you want to share something?
Alters, yes.
Oh, Mr. Alters. Yeah, good.
How are
Good to
you?
see you, sir.
Thank you for everything. The one thing that I've listened to everybody, I appreciate everything everybody's saying. Everything you're saying is on point. I'm sure there's some fluctuations in everybody's opinion. That's fine. I feel, and I think many of my neighbors feel, that we're losing some of the enjoyment of living on the beach. And that may be as a result of tighter security, necessary tighter security, whatever it is. I would just ask, I mean, we use the ocean every single weekend. We use the beach every weekend. We have dogs, we have jet skis, and I know we're not alone in that. I would just ask that there's a balance understood for the residents to have their enjoyment of their own property and their right of use property, so that security, I'm all for it, bring it on, add to it, do everything we need to do. I'll be your biggest supporter, but we do want to enjoy it since we're here to live on the beach. And sometimes I feel like we don't necessarily have that same opportunity. I've been here now for almost 13 years, and it feels a little bit different now, maybe more than a little bit different than it did 5 to 8 years ago. I understand it. I get it. I just, maybe some better communication on the balance as we go forward would be great. And I know you've been trying to meet with us, and we're happy to meet. I just want to make sure that anyone who chooses to live on the beach does it because they love it. If they didn't, they'd be selling their house right now because of the prices.
And Mr. Alters, absolutely. The one thing that I will caution any of our Ocean Boulevard homeowners is we do purchase homes in areas that have ordinances that govern the properties that you purchase. And a lot of our new homeowners have taken a lot of liberties in terms of bringing in recreational vehicles that shouldn't necessarily be in our community. There's a resident that has a boat that goes back and forth from the ocean. There's not a pier there. There's no mooring dock. We need to make sure that we do things properly, that it's with permission. Some of our homeowners have decided to take their properties and extend it further eastbound with sod and artificial turf and fencing.
Yeah, well,
So we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful that everything that we do in our community has to be with the permission of both the state and the city. And
Well,
that individual
so
residents can't take those liberties on their own.
So since you brought it up, that's where the problem is. That has been the way it is for 13 years that I've been here. And if you were to, I'm the one with the sod, so you can speak it out. It doesn't bother me. But my sod doesn't go anywhere near where palm trees and sea grapes and all kinds of other things do on other residents. There's zero communication on that. And you certainly are allowed to bring a jet ski across your right of use property, or a boat that has tracks on it that doesn't need a dock or a mooring. That's the law. It's certainly allowable and permissible. But the communication we're getting is very different over the last year and very uncomfortable for the residents who enjoy the beach. If you don't, I understand, it's no problem. But if you do, it's been different, I'll use that word, somewhat convoluted, and the laws have been the same for years. So now you're telling us, maybe that's what you're telling us, that now the laws are going to be enforced differently. That's where I get concerned about the security aspects, because, you know, I sit on the beach every weekend and there are people all along the beach not laterally traversing. They're not homeowners. The police officers are driving right by them. Now, I'm not going to call the police because there's someone sitting on the beach. That's not how I am. I don't do that. But my point is, we have to understand that things have been done a certain way here. And I'm all for everything you said, literally everything you said security wise. I think it's a great idea. I do have some concerns about the camera, but I think those were addressed. But we live here and we have certain rights, and we have certain rights of use. And, you know, while we don't want people docking on the shore from outside, we certainly should be able to go into the water from our house. And so maybe there's a communication barrier there for a lot of people, but I have been here for a while and I'm not going anywhere. And I want to make sure that at least the residents who use the beach, use the area, communicate with you to understand what needs to be done. And then a security concern, the last thing I have is 3 houses next to me sold, as we all know, and are going to be demolished. I'm very happy for Mr. Ragon to do that. That's great. What are we doing about all of the homes that are being built on the beach side that have, you know, let's call it 20, 30, 40, 100 construction workers on a daily basis? Because now I have more concern because it'll be next to my house. So I raise a question probably for everybody who has similar issues. That's when petty theft and certain things happen. So is there a plan for the volume of construction? Thank you.
Yes, so a couple things. Those of you who have known me, and I've been your manager 15 years, you know that I try to find a win-win solution for all of the efforts that we've taken over the last 15 years. And so you have my commitment that as we look to strengthen our code and try to enforce a little bit more of the code, that certain homeowners aren't taking liberties that we're not accustomed to. And so if you know me, if you ask for permission, you usually get it. It's when you don't ask for permission that the stick comes out and we then hammer you for it, because we like to be informed before things happen instead of after they happen. And that's just so that we can get a consensus of whether or not we want those things to occur. As it relates to the construction efforts, know that we used to have 1 code enforcement trained officer in our department. We have now cross-trained 2 other individuals. So we'll have a total of 3 code enforcement type individuals who will be more actively patrolling the construction sites. So the construction workers see uniformed individuals going onto the site and they know that we're monitoring them. So we went from 1 code enforcement train. We recently have started cross-training 2 additional ones who are going to be more actively patrolling the construction sites for that presence of us watching them. And hopefully that'll be a big deterrent. And when it comes to that, in addition to that, the city council has asked that we look at ways that we register construction workers and their subs and their contractors. So at least we know who's signing in daily onto the site, so that if something happens on that date, we know who is on the site. That's a little bit more difficult. It is my goal that in next year's budget, that's part of our requirements through the permitting fee structure, that each construction site has to have a daily log of who's on site. And that will help us understand who is in the community when something happens in our community.
Hey, Alex, it's Herb Tobin. Fran and I have to be somewhere. I want to apologize. Thank you very much. So we're going to
Thank you all. Anyone else, just wave or raise your hand. If not, I want to say thank you for giving me an hour of your time. Know that Mayor Singer tried to make it onto this meeting. Unfortunately, he had a scheduling conflict, and I think he may have had a staff scheduling issue. I'm not sure if staff coordinated with him correctly, but know that he has been texting me, tell me what's going on, keep me informed. I'm doing that, and he's going to get a copy of the video and he'll be able to watch it. Know that Mayor Singer and the entire city councils appreciate all that you do for us as our residents, and know that we are working to make your homes more secure and that your stay in Golden Beach more enjoyable. Thank you for the last hour. And thank you, Rudy and Gio, for your time this evening. Good job to all. Thank you, everyone.